The air was thick with the primal scent of the forest, damp and earthy as the dense trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches reaching out like the fingers of forgotten giants. As the first rays of light broke through the canopy, they illuminated the path ahead. Eamon, an experienced hunter, moved silently, his leather boots barely making a sound as he stepped on the thick carpet of leaves and moss. His spear was gripped tightly in his hand, its tip sharp, reflecting the faint light. "The beast can't be far now," he muttered under his breath. His companion, Ilsa, a young but fierce tracker, crouched beside him. She nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the underbrush. "It's close, I can feel it," she said, her voice a whisper that blended with the sounds of the forest. A low growl echoed in the distance, a sound that sent a chill through both their spines. Eamon clenched his jaw, his heart pounding. "We're not leaving here without that creature." Eamon's breath came in steady, shallow bursts as he and Ailsa neared the camp. The creature was close, too close. The low growl I'd heard earlier was now clearer, louder, vibrating in the air. Ailsa, ever the tracker, had picked up the trail again. Her eyes flickered back to Eamon, and she gave a small nod. "It's near," she whispered, her voice a mere breath above the rustling wind. "We have to be ready." Thorvald's heart raced as he gripped his spear tighter, feeling the weight of the hunt settle on his shoulders. The camp was visible now, a crude settlement hidden beneath the trees, where primitive structures were built from logs and leaves. The creature they had been hunting was nearby, and all the signs pointed to a massive cave that lay beneath the mountain. "We approach quietly," Eamon whispered, his voice unwavering. "And when we strike fast." The last stretch of the journey was the hardest. The cave entrance loomed ahead, its dark mouth like a silent predator waiting to strike. Eamon's grip on his spear tightened, his heart pounding in his chest. The air was thick with moisture, the smell of damp earth filling his nostrils. Ilsa moved silently beside him, her eyes scanning the darkness ahead. "This is it," she whispered, her voice tense. "Once we're inside, there's no turning back." Eamon nodded grimly. "We've come too far to turn back now. We face whatever waits within." With a final glance at the camp behind them, they stepped forward, moving toward the entrance of the cave. As they entered the shadows, the air grew colder, and the sounds of the forest faded. Only the rhythmic sound of their footsteps remained. "Stay close," Eamon murmured. "This creature isn't the only danger in these caves." With that, they plunged into the darkness, their torches flickering faintly. The cave's interior was a labyrinth of tunnels and jagged rocks, the only light provided by their flickering torches. Eamon moved with caution, his spear held ready, every sense on high alert. Ailsa was a few steps ahead, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness, her every movement fluid and quiet. "We're getting close," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "I can feel it." Eamon nodded, his breath steady despite the rising tension. "Keep your guard up," he muttered. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the air became. The walls of the cave were slick with moisture, and the ground beneath them shifted as they moved forward. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the tunnels, vibrating in the stillness. It was close. Too close. "Get ready," Eamon whispered, his grip on his spear tightening. The sound grew louder, and Eamon could feel the creature's presence in the air, its eyes watching them from the darkness. The growl that echoed through the cave sent a shiver down Eamon's spine. The sound was deep, reverberating off the stone walls, and it was getting closer. Ilsa's hand instinctively tightened around her dagger, her eyes scanning the shadows. "It's here," she whispered, barely audible. Eamon nodded, his grip on his spear firm. They had tracked the creature for days, through treacherous forests and harsh terrain. Now, they were at the end of the trail. The growl grew louder, then suddenly, silence. It was as if the creature was watching them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Stay close," Eamon muttered. "When it comes, we fight together." He took a deep breath, steadying himself. The cave was dark, the only light coming from their flickering torches. The air was thick with tension, and Eamon could feel the creature's presence just beyond his vision. "Whatever happens, don't let it corner us," Ailsa said. Eamon nodded, bracing himself for the attack. Suddenly the ground beneath them shook, and a loud, deafening roar filled the cave. The creature leapt from the shadows, its massive body crashing into the stone walls, sending rocks tumbling to the ground. Eamon barely had time to react. The beast was enormous, its eyes glowing red like embers, and its jaws were wide, revealing sharp, jagged teeth. "Move!" Eamon shouted, pushing Ailsa out of the way. The creature lunged again, its claws raking through the air. Eamon thrust his spear forward, narrowly missing the creature's throat. Ailsa's dagger gleamed as she struck at the beast's side, but it recoiled, slamming its massive tail into the wall. "It's too strong," Ailsa yelled, struggling to keep her balance. "We need to find a way to weaken it." Eamon's heart raced as the creature turned toward them, its growl shaking the air. "Then we fight smarter, not harder," he said, eyes narrowing as he prepared for the next strike. The battle raged on, and the cave seemed to close in around them with each passing moment. Eamon's arms ached from holding his spear, and his breath came in heavy gasps. The creature was relentless, each attack more powerful than the last. Ailsa darted to the side, trying to flank the creature, but its massive claws were too fast. "We're not winning this fight," Eamon muttered, his voice full of frustration. "We need to find its weakness." Ailsa's eyes narrowed as she dodged another blow. "I can't keep dodging forever," she said, her voice strained. "We need a distraction." Eamon's mind raced, trying to think of a way to turn the tide of the battle. "The creature's eyes," he said suddenly. "They're its weakest point. If we can blind it, we have a chance." Ailsa nodded, her face set in determination. "Then let's blind it," she said, charging at the creature with renewed purpose. Ailsa's eyes locked onto the creature's eyes, and in that moment, she knew exactly what needed to be done. With a shout, she darted forward, using the chaos of the battle to close the distance. Eamon followed her lead, his spear aimed directly at the creature's face. The creature roared in anger, its jaws snapping shut as it turned toward Ailsa. With lightning speed, Ailsa leapt onto a nearby rock, using it to propel herself higher. She grabbed a large rock from the ground and hurled it at the creature's eyes. The stone struck with a sickening thud, temporarily blinding the creature. It roared in pain, thrashing wildly, its massive body flailing about. Eamon wasted no time. He charged, driving his spear into the creature's side. With a final brutal push, the creature collapsed, its body going limp. Silence fell over the cave, the battle finally over. Eamon stood, breathing heavily, looking at the lifeless beast. "We did it," Ailsa said, her voice a mix of exhaustion and triumph. With the creature finally defeated, Eamon and Ailsa stood over its massive body, the weight of the battle still fresh in their minds. "It's done," Eamon said, his voice full of relief, though his body was battered and bruised from the fight. "We've avenged the village." Ailsa wiped the sweat from her brow, her face weary but proud, and stopped a force of nature from wreaking havoc on the world. Eamon looked around at the cave, taking in the destruction left in the creature's wake. "We've learned something here," he said. "These beasts are not alone. There's more out there, we can't stop now." Ailsa nodded in agreement, her eyes scanning the dark cave. "We'll hunt them down one by one," she said, "until this land is safe again." The two of them stood in the silence of the cave, their weapons ready, knowing that their adventure was far from over. The journey from the cave was filled with silence, each step echoing through the dense forest as Eamon and Ailsa made their way back to the village. Their bodies ached from the battle, their limbs weary from the long trek. "We've won this fight," Ailsa said softly, her voice tired but satisfied. "But there's no time to rest." Eamon nodded in agreement, his eyes scanning the tree line. "This was just one creature. We've stopped it from terrorizing the land, but the truth is we don't know how many more there are out there." Ailsa stopped for a moment, glancing up at him. "You mean we haven't just been hunting beasts, but a larger threat?" Eamon's gaze hardened. "Yes. These creatures aren't just isolated incidents, they're part of something much bigger. I can feel it, we've barely scratched the surface. They continued walking, their eyes determined, knowing that their journey was far from over. As they reached the village, the sight of the familiar huts and the bustling activity of the villagers brought a sense of relief. However, Eamon couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't out of danger yet. "We need to speak to the elders," Eamon said, his voice low. "I don't think we're dealing with just isolated attacks anymore." Elsa nodded in agreement. "There's something bigger happening here." The two of them made their way to the village center, where the village elders were gathered. The elders greeted them with relief, but their expressions soon turned serious as Eamon and Ilsa explained their encounter. "This isn't just about creatures," Eamon said. "There's a larger force behind it. I can feel it. We need to prepare for what's to come." The elders exchanged uneasy glances, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We will stand with you," one of the elders said. "But we must be ready for the war ahead." The next few days were spent fortifying the village and preparing for whatever was coming. Eamon, Ilsa, and the village warriors trained relentlessly, honing their skills in anticipation of the battles ahead. "We can't afford to wait for them to strike first," Ilsa said, watching the warriors practice with their weapons. "We must be the ones to find them." Eamon nodded, his eyes focused on the horizon. "The creatures may be part of it, but there's a bigger force pulling the strings. I won't let this land fall into chaos." As the days passed, Eamon and Ilsa set out on patrols, tracking signs of the creatures and searching for clues. The forest around them felt different now, as if something was lurking just beyond their reach. "We're getting closer," Eamon muttered as they followed a set of tracks deeper into the woods. "And soon we'll find the source of this nightmare." The forest grew darker as they ventured further, the path becoming more treacherous with each step. Suddenly, Elsa froze, her eyes narrowing as she pointed to a large rock outcropping ahead. "There," she whispered. Eamon looked in the direction she indicated and saw something he hadn't expected, a large, open cave entrance, barely visible through the trees. "This wasn't here before," Eamon muttered, taking a cautious step forward. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and Eamon could feel the weight of the place, as if something ancient and powerful resided within. Elsa looked at him, her expression wary. "Do you think this is where they've been hiding?" Eamon nodded slowly. "It's possible. Whatever's causing these attacks is in there, and we need to find it now." With weapons ready, they approached the entrance of the cave, knowing that this would be the next step in their dangerous journey. Inside the cave, the air was colder, and the walls were damp with moisture. The only sound was the quiet shuffle of their feet, as Eamon and Elsa moved deeper into the darkness. "This place feels wrong," Elsa whispered, her voice barely audible. Eamon nodded, his instincts on high alert. "Stay close," he muttered, his spear raised. They continued forward, and the darkness seemed to swallow them whole. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared ahead, growing brighter with each step. Eamon's heart pounded as they reached the source of the light, a large chamber, glowing with an unnatural green light. In the center of the room, an ancient stone altar stood, covered in strange runes. "This is it," Eamon said, his voice filled with awe and dread. "This is where it all began." Elsa stepped forward, her hand reaching out toward the altar. "We need to destroy whatever power is here before it spreads." The cave's oppressive silence was broken only by the distant sound of dripping water as Eamon and Elsa examined the altar more closely. The strange glowing runes seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and the air around them crackled with unnatural energy. "This is ancient," Elsa murmured, tracing a finger over the symbols etched into the stone. "Far older than anything we've encountered before." Eamon's gaze never left the altar. "This isn't just a marker. It's a source of power," he said, his voice grim. "We need to find out what it's connected to before it grows stronger." Elsa stepped back, her hand on her dagger. "But how do we stop it?" Eamon looked up, his expression hardening. "We destroy it. We take out the source and the creatures will stop. If we don't, they'll keep coming. We'll be fighting forever." With a final nod, they prepared to destroy the altar, knowing the risk but realizing they had no other choice. As Eamon and Ilsa set about trying to destroy the altar, a deafening roar suddenly echoed through the cave, vibrating the very walls. Eamon's heart skipped a beat as the air grew thick with an unnatural force. "We're not alone," he said, gripping his spear tighter. "Get ready." The ground beneath them trembled, and the glow from the altar grew more intense. Suddenly, the walls of the cave cracked, and out from the shadows emerged a massive, shadowy figure. It was a creature unlike anything they had seen, a towering behemoth with glowing eyes and scales as dark as the depths of the earth. "We'll never get the chance to destroy it if we don't deal with this thing first," Ilsa shouted, backing away cautiously. Eamon nodded, his face set in determination. "Then we fight until the last breath." The battle erupted in an explosion of movement. The creature lunged, its claws swinging through the air with terrifying speed. Eamon sidestepped, his spear thrusting forward, but the creature's thick scales deflected the blow. Ilsa darted to the side, her dagger flashing as she struck at the beast's side, but it recoiled, its enormous tail sweeping through the air and knocking her back. "It's too strong," Eamon grunted, barely avoiding another swipe of the creature's claws. "We need to be smarter about this." Ilsa, breathing heavily, nodded from the ground as she regained her footing. "Agreed. We can't just brute force this." Eamon's eyes narrowed. "We target its eyes like last time. If we blind it, we might have a chance." Together, they coordinated their attacks, moving in tandem to get closer to the creature's vulnerable spots. They needed precision now. Anything less would result in failure. The creature recoiled, its glowing eyes filled with rage, but the moment of hesitation allowed Eamon to strike. He lunged forward, his spear aimed directly at one of the creature's eyes. The sharp tip of the spear drove deep into the beast's eye, and it let out a bone-chilling scream. The creature thrashed, its massive body crashing into the cave walls, but Eamon held firm, using the momentum to push forward. "We've got it now," Ilsa shouted, charging toward the beast's other side. With a swift strike, she plunged her dagger into the creature's thick skin near the base of its neck. The creature roared in agony, its strength faltering. "One more push," Eamon said, his voice firm with resolve. Together, they moved in for the final blow. With a final decisive thrust, Eamon drove his spear deep into the heart of the creature. It shuddered and collapsed, its body falling limp to the ground. With the creature defeated, the cave fell silent once again. Eamon and Ilsa stood over its massive body, their breath ragged from the fight. "It's over," Ilsa said, her voice still shaky from the adrenaline of battle. Eamon nodded, but didn't lower his spear. He turned toward the altar, its runes still glowing ominously. "Not quite," he muttered. "We've destroyed the creature, but this power still lingers." Ilsa glanced at the altar, her brow furrowed. "Then we destroy it. Whatever power is here, we end it now." Eamon walked toward the altar, his footsteps heavy. "Agreed. But we need to be careful. If we destroy it wrong, we may unleash something even worse." He raised his spear, preparing to strike. "Let's finish this once and for all." With a final decisive motion, Eamon struck the altar, and the cave shook, the runes fading as the power within dissipated into the air. The final blow to the altar had left the cave in a state of eerie silence. The green glow faded into nothingness, and the oppressive energy that had once filled the air dissipated, leaving a strange calm in its wake. Eamon stood before the now dim altar, his spear still raised, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Ilsa stood beside him, her body tense as she surveyed the surroundings. "It's done," she said softly. "But was that enough?" Eamon looked back at her, his expression weary but resolute. "We've destroyed the source of their power, but we can't be certain until we leave this place." The two of them exchanged a glance before Eamon turned back toward the cave entrance. "We've come this far, Ilsa. Let's go. We need to return to the village and prepare for what comes next." Ilsa nodded, her eyes scanning the cave one last time. "The world may not be safe yet, but we've taken the first step." The journey back to the village was long, the dense forest stretching endlessly before them. The weight of the battle and their victory still hung heavily in the air, but Eamon and Ilsa knew they couldn't afford to linger in the aftermath. "We've won this battle," Elsa said, breaking the silence as they walked side by side, "but we're not finished yet. We still don't know who's behind all of this." Eamon's gaze remained fixed on the path ahead. "We'll find out," he said, his voice determined. "We have to. There are forces at play here that we haven't even begun to understand. This is bigger than us, but that doesn't mean we stop." Elsa looked at him, her expression filled with a quiet understanding. "Then we press on. We finish what we started." Eamon nodded, a fire in his eyes. "We'll uncover the truth, Elsa, and we'll stop it, whatever it takes." By the time Eamon and Elsa returned to the villagers were already beginning to rebuild, but the sense of unease remained. The destruction left behind by the creatures was still fresh in everyone's minds. "We need to prepare," Eamon said to the village elders as they gathered around the central fire. "The battle we fought was only a small part of something much larger. There are more creatures, more dangers, and someone is controlling them." The elder nodded, his face grim. "We feared as much, but we did not know how far this would go. What are your plans?" Eamon stood tall, his voice steady. "We must find the source of these creatures. We can no longer wait for them to come to us. We need to seek them out and destroy them before they destroy us." The elder looked around at the gathered villagers. "Then we will fight beside you," he said, his voice strong. "The village will stand with you as it always has." The next morning, preparations were underway for the journey ahead. Eamon and Elsa, along with a small group of village warriors, gathered their supplies and weapons. "We leave at dawn," Eamon instructed, his voice steady. "We'll follow the tracks we found earlier and track them down. The longer we wait, the more powerful they become." Elsa nodded, her face set in determination. "And if we can find the source of their power, we can put an end to this once and for all." The warriors began preparing their horses, checking their gear and sharpening their weapons. The village was quiet, but there was an underlying sense of urgency, as everyone knew what was at stake. "Stay vigilant," Eamon warned his group. "We'll be entering unknown territory, and the dangers will be greater than ever." The warriors nodded in agreement, and with one final look at the village, they set off, the path ahead uncertain, but their resolve unshaken. The trek through the wilderness was difficult, with harsh terrain and dense forests slowing their progress. "They've been here," Elsa said, kneeling to examine the tracks left in the muddy ground. "We're getting closer." Eamon looked around, his eyes scanning the dense trees. "This isn't the only place they've been. We're not just following their path, we're walking into their territory. We need to be prepared for anything." The group continued forward, their pace quickening as they approached the heart of the forest. The trees grew thicker, and the air felt heavier, as if the forest itself was alive with the weight of the creatures lurking within. As they neared a large clearing, Eamon stopped and raised his hand, signaling the group to halt. "They're close," he said, his voice tense. "We need to move in carefully. They won't let us approach easily." The warriors nodded, their weapons ready as they prepared for the final push. The clearing ahead revealed a sight that stopped Eamon in his tracks. The ground was scorched, and the remnants of broken structures lay scattered across the open space, evidence of a battle fought long ago. This wasn't just an attack," Elsa said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "This place was razed. They were trying to destroy something." Eamon squinted against the early afternoon sun, his eyes scanning the devastation. "They're not just hunting for food or territory," he murmured. "They're looking for something important." As they stepped further into the clearing, the air grew heavy with the scent of burned wood and ash. Eamon's instincts flared. This was no ordinary fight, and the creatures were not the only force at work here. "We need to find out what they were searching for," Elsa said, her voice firm. "Or they do it again." As they examined the clearing, Elsa's eyes caught something in the distance, a half-buried object that seemed out of place. She approached cautiously, her boots crunching on the charred earth. "What is it?" Eamon asked, stepping closer. Elsa knelt down, brushing away the dirt and ash. It's a relic, she said, her voice laced with surprise. A stone tablet, engraved with symbols. These aren't from any tribe we've encountered. Eamon knelt beside her, his brow furrowing as he examined the symbols. This isn't just a relic. It's a map, he said slowly, piecing the puzzle together. A map to something hidden. A place perhaps where they found whatever they were searching for. Ailsa stood, dusting off her hands. Then we follow this map. Whatever they wanted, we need to find it first. Eamon nodded, determined. We'll take the tablet back to the village. We're not alone in this search anymore. As they made their way back to the village, the group's mood shifted. The discovery of the tablet had deepened the mystery, but also brought a sense of urgency. We have to move quickly, Eamon said, his voice firm as they trekked through the forest. If we can find the place on the map, we might be able to understand what they're after. Ailsa glanced at the tablet, now securely wrapped in cloth. Do you think it's leading us to the source of their power? Eamon nodded. It's a strong possibility, and if that's the case, we need to find it before they do. The group continued their journey, their pace quickening as they neared the village. Whatever lies ahead, we face it together, Eamon said, his eyes scanning the horizon. Ailsa's expression was determined. We won't stop until we find the truth. As the village came into view, Eamon felt the weight of the tablet in his pack, the mystery it held now even more pressing. He could see the villagers at work, but there was a certain unease in the air. The battle they had fought felt like only the beginning, and the discovery of the tablet had confirmed his worst fears. They're not just trying to destroy us, Eamon said to Ailsa as they approached the village. They're trying to control something far bigger than we can imagine. Ailsa's face was set with determination. Then we stop them, Eamon. We don't give them the chance to control anything else. Eamon nodded, his gaze focused on the village. We'll need the village elders' help with deciphering this map, but we move fast. Time's running out. The villagers stopped what they were doing as they approached, their eyes filled with curiosity and concern. Eamon turned to the group. Prepare yourselves. We may be going on another hunt, but this time, it's for the heart of the enemy. That night, the village gathered around the central fire, the flickering flames casting shadows on the faces of the villagers. Eamon and Ailsa stood before the elders, presenting the stone tablet. This is the key, Eamon said, his voice steady, and it will lead us to the heart of the creature's power. The village elder studied the tablet closely, his face a mask of concentration. These symbols are ancient, the elder said slowly, and they tell of a place hidden deep within the mountains. A place that was sealed away long ago, for good reason. Ailsa leaned in. What is this place? The elder's gaze shifted to the fire. A tomb, a prison of sorts. Whatever is kept within should never be unleashed. Eamon's heart sank. Then we have no choice. We must go there. It's the only way to end this. The elder nodded. You are right. But be warned, what you will face there is more dangerous than anything you've encountered before. Eamon looked at Ailsa. Then it's settled. We leave at first light. The next morning, the village was alive with preparation. Eamon, Ailsa, and the warriors packed their supplies, their faces set with grim determination. The path ahead will be treacherous, Eamon said as he checked his gear. The mountain passes are dangerous, and the creatures may be watching us. We must stay vigilant. Ailsa adjusted her cloak, her eyes scanning the village. And if there's something waiting for us in the mountains, we'll face it head on. The warriors, armed and ready, stood behind them, prepared for whatever lay ahead. The villagers gathered around, offering supplies and words of encouragement. Bring back peace, one of the elders said as Eamon approached. We trust in you. Eamon nodded solemnly. We will not fail. With that, the group set off toward the mountains, the village fading behind them as they moved into the unknown. The journey through the mountain passes was as treacherous as Eamon had feared. The narrow paths were slippery with ice and snow, and the winds howled through the jagged cliffs, making it difficult to hear anything other than the sound of their boots crunching on the frozen ground. We need to keep moving, Eamon said, his voice barely audible above the wind. We can't afford to stop. The longer we're out here, the more likely we are to be spotted. Ailsa nodded, her eyes scanning the cliffs around them. Something feels off, she muttered. I don't think we're alone. Eamon's hand instinctively tightened around his spear. Stay alert. If there's something out there, we'll face it head on. As they moved forward, the wind picked up, creating an eerie howling sound that made the entire mountain pass feel like a trap. Keep close, Eamon warned. And don't let your guard down. Suddenly, the sharp crack of a distant branch breaking echoed through the mountains. Get down! Eamon shouted, his voice urgent. The group dropped to the ground, their eyes darting around, trying to find the source of the sound. It's too quiet, Ailsa whispered, her breath visible in the cold air. Too quiet. Eamon motioned for the group to move behind the nearest rock outcrop, his heart pounding in his chest. Stay low and stay together. We don't know what's watching us. The group huddled together, weapons ready. Ailsa's eyes narrowed as she scanned the cliffs above them. There, she said quietly, pointing to a shadowy figure that darted between the rocks. It's a scout. They're following us. Eamon's grip on his spear tightened. Then we make our stand here. They won't take us by surprise. The group readied their weapons, prepared for the fight that was sure to come. Without warning, the shadows around them shifted, and the first of the attackers leapt from the cliffs above. The creature was massive, its scaled body blending with the rocks as it landed with a thundering crash. It's here, Ailsa shouted, drawing her dagger and charging toward the creature. Eamon followed closely behind, his spear aimed at the creature's heart. The battle was fierce, the creature's claws raking through the air, narrowly missing Eamon's face. Stay focused, Eamon shouted as he parried a swipe from the creature's claws. We take it down together. Ailsa moved in from the side, her dagger flashing as she struck at the creature's legs. It roared in pain, thrashing wildly, but the warriors pressed on, their strikes calculated and powerful. Eamon found an opening and, with a final thrust, drove his spear deep into the creature's chest. The beast let out a final roar before collapsing to the ground, lifeless. With the creature defeated, the group took a moment to catch their breath. We're getting closer, Ailsa said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. But we need to be careful. There's more out there, and they're learning from us. Eamon nodded, wiping the blood from his spear. We'll have to move faster, be smarter. We're not just hunting anymore. We're on a mission. The warriors gathered around, their expressions weary, but determined. We've made it this far, Eamon said, his voice strong. And we'll finish what we started, together. The group set off once more, their eyes fixed on the horizon as they moved deeper into the mountains. The journey was far from over, but with each step they grew closer to the truth, and the final confrontation that awaited them.